Anna and Rowan have DIY built their tiny house on a 7.8 metre protruding wheel guard trailer. They've built it mostly in Canberra and then moved it up to Newcastle, where they now reside. In this interview, they talk to us about lots of interesting things, and we first of all take a deep dive into the insurance policy that they managed to get from CIL, because there's a little bit of a discrepancy with how CIL talk about it, and there's a little bit of a grey area in the tiny house community at the moment with the understanding about whether or not DIY builders are eligible for CIL tiny house insurance. They get to talk about the fun that they had with building their own tiny house with really no previous experience building, and the challenging things that they experienced. They share a lot about what it's been like as a couple to build, what helped them and what they learned along the way about themselves, and they offer up plenty of useful advice for any first-time DIY tiny house builder. I had a lot of fun talking to Rowan and Anna and seeing their tiny house. So I hope you get a lot out of it. There's lots of little interesting things for you to mine here out of this interview that will surely be helpful for anybody who's thinking about building a tiny house for the first time, especially as a DIY builder. I'm Shannon Schultz from Fred's Tiny Houses. I hope you stay with us.
In regards to the height and the width, we did build it to be within those limits, so it is classified as a caravan, but we haven't actually ended up registering it because we found it was a lot cheaper for us to just get the 1-day permit to move the house. The best thing that we found that building it within the confines of it being legally classified as a caravan was with the insurance, because one of the criteria for the house to be insured is it registerable, and it being legally classified as a caravan, being under the 4.3, under the 2.5 and less than 4.5 tons, means we could register it if we wanted to. But for us, there's no point because we've moved it once and it's going to sit here for probably a few years.
Yeah, great. It's more like you keep that registrability in your back pocket for a situation that's unforeseen, where you have to sell it or you have to move it a number of times. You're right. I mean, you're already getting the benefit of that by being able to insure it. And which company are you insuring with?
CIL, they're the ones that specifically say sort of tiny house insurance on their website, and that's on the insurance policy.
Okay, great. And I've spoken to other people who've said that the CIL require some kind of registered builder to build it or an equivalent sign-off. So did you pursue anything like that to formalise the building quality?
I remember hearing that, and we wigged out for a little bit because we built it ourselves. So obviously we can't backtrack and get somebody to sign off something that they didn't see us build. But in the end, all still needed from us was the certification for gas and plumbing, the certification for our electricals. I got both of those certifications, and a value, like a proper caravan valuer to value our tiny house.
Oh, okay.
And then we submitted those 3 things, and that was sufficient.
Great. Cool.
Yeah.
What did they value it at?
Well, $104,000.
Yes.
I
know.
Nice.
That was a bit of a nerve-wracking moment because we'd sort of put all this time and money and energy into it, and it was all down to, probably one person at this company deciding to put a number on it. But, we sent in the description and the construction process and everything involved with it. And yeah, they came back with us at that number, which was really nice.
Really nice
to hear.
Because we would not have spent that much money on it. Obviously, we spent a lot of time and labor on it, which would have, added up financially. But it's very nice for 2 people who have never built well, I've never built anything before, and you've definitely never built anything as big as a house, to feel like we made something worth that much money.
Exactly. That's so gratifying.
Very.
I hope you bought some bubbly.
Yeah. One of the things that we did tell them was we did use Fred's construction method that patented I can't remember the
It's called the unified construction method.
Yeah. We did all of that to a T, and we can prove that with photos and stuff like that. So I think that also helped with that process.
Yeah, hopefully they rated that as something that you'd really put a lot of thought into and done your research on.
Yeah.
And may I ask how much you estimate you actually spent on building it?
Yeah.
I think we estimated
70.
Yeah, around 70
80 grand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Give or take. That's not including the deck and everything on the deck.
I'm just going to jump in here as essentially a little verbal footnote, if you like. Since doing this interview, I did call CIL and I did get a little bit more information from a representative there at CIL about whether or not DIY builders are eligible to take out a insurance policy on their tiny house vehicle once it's completed. What I learnt was through two different means. One of them was talking with the representative from CIL who assured me that DIY builders are capable of taking out an insurance policy, and by providing pictures that detail their building method, they're capable of securing a policy through the CIL company. They also shared with me their flowchart of decision making around whether or not a DIY builder or any tiny house on wheels for that matter is eligible for receiving a policy. And in that flowchart, it very clearly states that a DIY builder is not eligible for a policy. So what I understand to be the case is that whilst it's written down on their flowchart that DIY builders are not eligible for getting a CIL insurance policy for their tiny house on wheels, there are circumstances where they are accepted. And the woman at CIL assured me that if a client has been given a policy, CIL has taken on the risk of that build and would therefore pay out in the event of a claim. Now, I think that at this point in time, DIY builders are vulnerable to having any claim put up for discussion, in the event of needing a claim, because their paperwork does clearly state that tiny houses need to be built by registered builders of houses on foundations. We're taking CIL's word for the idea that if you've got a policy, then the risk has been accepted by CIL and they will pay out. Tricky to say. Overall, I guess the impression that's left in my mind from exploring this as far as I can, I think it probably is advisable for any DIY builder to engage a registered builder of houses on foundations or an architect to approve the building method that you have used for your tiny house as you're going, so that you can have somebody put their name on paper saying these plans that this client has submitted to me and that this building method that they have followed is acceptable to my professional knowledge and to my professional standard. And therefore, CIL can borrow their confidence, essentially. That would probably just be the safest way of doing it, although the way that Anna and Rowan have taken it, where they've just taken lots and lots of pictures of their building method, supplied that in their application for the CIL insurance policy, that has worked for them. And I guess what we'll be looking for over time is people testing that through claims and seeing what the claim process is actually like for people when they haven't had a registered builder build their tiny house or an equivalent sign-off. To be continued. How'd it go building it?
It was a big job. We started the tiny house process at the end of June 2019 with a couple of workshops with Fred's Tiny Houses. And that was just for us to get an understanding of how the hell do we build one of these things. And that really sold it to us. So after that, we bought the trailer through Fred, picked up the trailer a few months later, and we didn't start building until January. So until from around September 2019 to the end of 2019, we were both working 2 jobs to save up money, but also designing the actual tiny house on SketchUp. Yeah, so then we designed it and then started building Jan 2020 and didn't finish until December, which is when we got it towed a week before Christmas to Newcastle. So, I mean, there was so many, it's such a big question. There was so many exciting moments, so many things to celebrate, so many fun learning curves, so many stressful moments, so many mistakes, so many intense conversations. It was just a very full, active, completely consuming and really rewarding year of building.
Yeah, I agree. We did go pretty gung-ho with it. I'd actually deferred uni to do the tiny house. So initially we wanted to try and sort of, get it done within a certain time frame. But I feel like having that deadline really pushed us because we spent, probably 5 days a week on average for the whole year.
Yeah.
I feel like the lockdown sort of helped with that.
So we could then, for a period of about 2 or 3 months, just work full time on the tiny until lockdown kind of finished up, and then we both went back to work. But yeah, that was a total blessing.
Yeah.
For a bit there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gave you a complete focus that you needed to get a lot of work done.
I think one of the best things about building a tiny house was the fact that we got to learn so many different sections and elements and proponents of building. So just learning how to do, joists and floorboards, that was really, really fun. And then just when you get pretty good at it, it's over and you move on. And so then you get to learn how to build a frame. And just when your wrists start to hurt, you're like, it's over. The frame's built. To learn how to do roofing, you get to learn how to do insulation, internal and external cladding. You get to learn how to install windows. You get to learn how to do walls inside. You get to learn how to do a loft. There's so many exciting elements, but you can never get over it. And it can never become too repetitive because it doesn't last that long because it's such a small area that you learn. It's such a small section physically. That was really fun. I really enjoyed that element.
I think one of the most challenging parts was we had the house, the frame up, we had the external cladding on and the wrap on and the roof on, and we just started putting the windows in. And I think so we put 3 windows in, and it rained one day and it actually leaked into the house. And we came in and there was a big puddle inside, and we figured that we'd actually installed the windows sort of incorrectly. So we actually had to uninstall 3 of the windows and then go back and reinstall them. It wasn't fun.
No, it's super annoying.
But it was totally worth it to make it waterproof,
Yeah.
We didn't want to leave it the way it was just in case it ever leaked again.
Yeah. And we were gutted because our floorboards are tongue and groove, and underneath them is obviously insulation, but we hadn't oiled our floors at that point in time. And we were worried that the water might have gone through the wood into the insulation. So Rowan got under the house and drilled a bunch of holes to let one air through, but also to hopefully let any water out and dry it off so there wouldn't be the creation of mold underneath our floors. And it also meant that our floors buckled a little bit in the center, which was super frustrating and sad actually, because now we've got a little buckle right in the center of our floorboards because they got wet and expanded, and it's something that we can never change. And it is what it is. We've sanded it back a bit, you've drilled it down a bit, but for the most part there's still a little buckle.
It's tough. It's that building outside thing. Like if anyone can build undercover, then they save themselves those
Mm,
really, really demoralizing moments, you know? Like I know that whenever we've built a tiny house in our front garden, there's that really critical couple of months where without it being sealed, you know, like you've got structure there, floorboards or frame or windows or anything without it being completely sealed. And there'll definitely be moments where, you know, Fred and I'll be watching a movie late at night and go, "Oh, is that rain?" And then all of a sudden we're, you know, up outside on ladders pulling 90 square meters of tarp over a tiny house roof in the middle of the night. So awful.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's the worst. It's like if you can get yourself a shed with a really, really high door, you know, do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is possible to build outdoors, but you do face those vulnerabilities of maybe having rain on your floorboards and having them buckle.
Mm-hmm.
Sunshine will do the same thing, have them shrink. We had that.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was a bit of a blessing in disguise, it actually leaking though, because if we had have built it in a shed, we wouldn't have known that it was going to leak, and we would have, you know, finished off the whole house and carted it off somewhere and put it in the weather. And as soon as it was exposed to the weather, it would have leaked. So it was good building it in the elements, because we knew that, you know, once we had the wrap on and the external cladding on and everything, and it was raining on it, it wasn't leaking. So
yeah,
good test.
You're right. Yeah, you wouldn't want to find that out when you're sleeping and water's coming in through the walls. Okay, so how did it go transporting it from Canberra to Newcastle?
Yeah, it was really good. We ended up using a company called Tiny Towing, mainly because it's all he does. He has his Ford F-250 and he's got enough business to sort of work full-time towing tiny houses. And I think he was a little bit more expensive than the standard sort of run-of-the-mill towing company price, but we preferred to go with him purely because he's obviously really experienced in towing odd things behind his car. But yeah, it was good. Ironically, it was a really rainy day, but yeah, it went off without a hitch.
And he got bogged.
Yeah, that's right. He actually got bogged on the driveway coming up into the house, because we live on top of a hill, and it was just so wet and slippery. Yeah, we sort of got up early the next morning and maneuvered it into where it sits right now.
Yeah, it's good that he was able to stick around and complete that positioning of the tiny house, even though, you know, it was at the end of a long day and rain and getting bogged. That's really good service of his to help you complete that project.
Totally. He also did an amazing job at squeezing the tiny house through a very small gap, which is quite literally about 2.6 meters wide. So he got it through there. It was the most intense moment. Rowan was on one side, like pushing the tree away from the tiny house. I was on the other side, showing him how much of a gap he had, and he made it through without a scratch, which was amazing.
You're just going to watch it happen. It's so stressful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good on you. Any reflections on your relationship and like how you held together as a couple during this intense and stressful period?
I think it was really good, us doing it together, because it sort of helped us learn, you know, to communicate more clearly, and yeah, by spending more time with each other, it's kind of like we've gotten more experience as a couple, as opposed to if we hadn't have built the tiny house. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It totally fast-tracked our relationship. We got to know each other very well very quickly in a different environment. Rowan taught me how to use power tools. I'd never even used a hammer. Like I'd not done anything, whereas you've been tinkering with drills since you were 11. So I think there was a lot of Ro teaching me things, and we got to share in the joys of all of the milestones.
We didn't have a lot of things that we had conflicting opinions of as well. So I feel like that really helped.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine if you're obviously co-building a house for two people to live in, there'd be a lot of, if you had different opinions of how it looks or its functionality, then there'd be a lot more compromising to do. But I think just as fate had it, we didn't have a lot of compromising to do. So that helped quite a lot.
Big time. I think the challenges that we faced were more around sometimes we'd be tired, stressed. Well, it's not on a daily basis that we were stressed. Like for the most part, we had music playing, we'd sing along. For a few months there, we'd speak in different accents. I don't know, we just like it. You know how you get your little quirks. And we had our little routine where we'd get there. Sometimes we'd meditate in the morning, and then we'd get building, and always throwing the stick for bungee, which was fun. And we'd always have a big lunch, and then Rowan would pass out starfish because he's full of pasta, and like sometimes have a nap. Like, there are a lot of fun moments. But I think that looming time frame really made us be proactive, but also never relax. Not completely, but for the most part, we felt like we were always on. And secondly, in the moment of building, you can be in pretty compromising, difficult physical positions. So like Ro could be on a ladder up high holding a big piece of 4.5 mil ply, and I'm down the bottom holding it. We're trying to get it square in position, and it's really stressful, but we've got to screw it in, and one of us keeps slipping, and then we're trying to communicate to move over to the right and slightly up, but we're just like, go up here, there, and the other person's like, I don't know what you mean, and the other person's like, don't you know it? Like, oh, come on. And then you're like, oh, I'm about to break, and then it'll fall, and we're like, oh. So there'll be intense moments in actual building, but then sometimes we'll come out afterwards and be like, sorry, I was a little bit short with you. Like, it's okay, so was I.
I think we're really good at that.
Yeah.
Knowing that we were getting a bit intense in the moment and then sort of apologizing afterwards.
Yeah, there was as many highs as there were okay, got to learn how to self-regulate and keep calm and keep moving on and not taking things personally, and knowing that we're both in this for the right reasons and that we're a team and not otherwise. And like Ro has this really nice thing where like when we bring things up confrontationally, at the end he's like, are we still friends? And I'm like, yeah, we're still friends. We hug it out. All little things where I'd go in and start the day and be like, let's build with love. And you'd be like, yeah, we're building with love. We want to build this house with love so that when we're in it, we're like, this was built with love,
Yeah, really nice intention setting there. Set the tone of the day and then set the tone of the house.
Yeah, we learned how difficult it is to actually explain how to do something as well, because you can be like, okay, well, that wall over there down the bottom, we need to screw that little piece out of the left side. And if someone's telling that to you, you're like, what?
Context, can you point? Like, what are you talking about? What piece?
Yeah. But in
what?
like explaining it from my perspective, it's like, I know exactly what I'm talking about. How come you can't read my mind?
Yeah.
So it made me realize how important it is to be so specific about every little thing that you're trying to explain.
Totally.
And I feel like we got pretty good at that.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Such a journey, isn't it?
It's a big journey. Yeah, sometimes we look up and we're like, we built this.
Yeah, I kind of miss it sometimes.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I do too. It's it's an epic thing, and by the end I was pretty done. I injured both my wrists. So it started with my left wrist, basically repetitive strain injury. So that really sucked. And then I was going hard on my right wrist, and it was these very walls that brought my right wrist down. And so there was a period of time there where I had wrist guards on both wrists, bolt iron every day, strapping, taking anti-inflammatories. One point couldn't lift a kettle or a drink bottle, like became pretty independent. And I was pretty sad. I had some solid cries, especially when I would accidentally hurt it. Like I'd go to twist, like open a jar or something, and it would cane. It was such a jarring feeling. So that would be definitely something I would warn against people, is that if you're going to build a tiny house for the first time, and haven't done much building or using power tools before, just be really mindful that if you go hard, like 4 or 5 days a week, it can take a toll.
Yeah, if you're sort of starting to feel pain, don't push through it.
Yeah.
Just stop and let it heal.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the community members who I anticipate you would have in your story. Like, were there people around you who helped you, or did you live with people whilst you built, or, what was the contribution of your friends and family?
So I think the two most helpful people would have been the people who let us build our tiny house on their property. And it's pretty much all thanks to them that we were able to do it, because they didn't charge us rent for the place. There was a big shed we could store things in. The guy who lived there let us use his tools, like his drop saw and stuff like that, which was amazing.
And they were just insanely generous. Like they would let us stay at their house if they were away, even when they weren't away, which meant on a few evenings that we worked super late into the night to get it done before the rain was due to come. We could go and shower afterwards in their house and sleep in their spare bedroom before starting up again the next morning. So yeah, that was insane support that, as Rose said, like enabled us the possibility of building it at all.
Yeah, thanks to them. That's great.
Here's to them.
Of course, every now and then we have friends turn up for a day, just to sort of help out. Yeah, your dad came out a few times, which was super helpful, and his dad's got a bunch of experience in construction, so it was just handy having someone who knows what they're doing help makes a big difference, as opposed to someone who's never done any construction before, because we found that there were times where people wanted to come and help, but I think we figured that if we had those extra people helping, it might have actually been more work for us to do, because you sort of have to actually learn how to delegate jobs. And if you're delegating a job to someone who doesn't really know how to do the job, you kind of have to show them how to do the job on top of that. So it does involve a lot of work having people help, ironically. But then, people like your dad coming and helping, it's like you can tell him, oh, that needs to be screwed together, and he can just go and do it,
But as Rose said, it would have created more work for us to explain what we so intimately know, because we did design it. We can quickly jump on SketchUp and know how to use it and just quickly go about what we're doing, because we know what to do versus having to articulate it to somebody else.
I really get that. You've articulated that conundrum well, of having the problem with help, essentially.
Actually, one more friend that helped more than a couple of times was a mate of ours, shout out Owen, who he and his partner were simultaneously building their tiny house down the road, which was just beautiful. We met them through the Tiny House Canberra community, and we helped them install their ceiling, for example, and he came out and helped us once or twice on top of doing the frame. And that was cool because we could very much relate to the process, and he knew exactly where to pick up and leave off, and we were able to lend each other tools and things like that, which was great because tools become quite expensive.
Yeah, nice to have a buddy who's doing the same thing and up to the same thing. That's great. Any advice that you can think, like if anything's occurred to you, like things that you wish you knew before you decided to take on the tiny house project?
I think the first thing that jumps to mind is everything takes way longer than you think it's going to take. And there's some things that take way less time than you think they're going to take. So it's really hard to actually, without any experience, produce a timeline of events, because, you know, there were a few things where we assumed they'd take a day or two, but actually took weeks to accomplish. So I think being really aware of that prior to beginning a build is really important.
I echo that completely, that everything takes a lot longer than you expect. Well, certainly it did for us. And that everything requires a lot of decision making and capacity. So I would err on the side of caution where you don't take on a job that requires a lot of brain space. The tiny house is relentless in terms of thinking about things. So yeah, I would very much recommend doing it at a time in your life where you really have the mental capacity for it to consume you.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because for a while I started to get pretty burnt out, and I think it was because of, you know, the pressure and the amount of questions and decisions there were to make, because you're constantly thinking, and if you're doing it with someone else, you sort of have to collaborate on the decisions, but you can't actually speak about every single little decision that there is to make. So I feel like the weight of them can actually build up so much to the point where even little decisions become really hard to sort of answer. It can change your perspective or your perception of things. You can have this really idealistic view of how something's going to go, but in the moment, if you're exhausted and you can't make any more decisions, you might decide to do something differently because you don't care as much in the moment, purely because you don't want the added weight of more mental load, I guess, if that makes sense.
It totally does. Yeah. I feel like, you know, I would call that decision fatigue, and mixed with overwhelm, mixed with burnout, you know, like that feeling of like, I just cannot face one more decision. And you might kind of apply a stuff it kind of attitude just to get yourself closer to bed, you know, where you get to rest. I'm glad you're addressing that mental toll, you know, because it's a real thing. Like we really just can't do it all.
Big time. And I think that would then also translate to doing it on your own versus doing it with somebody. And I mean, some people are more capable than others, and some people have more experience than others. So I wouldn't have a gold standard of minimum 2 people, because some people are capable of doing it on their own and just having help with the big stuff. In saying that, I would still very much advise, if it's your first tiny house or your first venture into building, I would really recommend doing it in a pair and not doing it solo. Yeah, I think in general, overarchingly, the mental load was probably bigger for you throughout the whole process, because you knew a bit more and I was more of a questioner and you were more of a decision maker. But so that was another thing that came up between us for me to take initiative. And that was really good learning for me to take initiative and to be like, I don't know how to do this, I'm going to look into it myself, versus burden Rowan with another question. So, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would very much tell somebody who's new to the building world to either think really hard about if they have both the capacity, interest, and the ongoing motivation to do it on your own without a buddy. That would be really hard, I would personally find.
I feel like the biggest thing that we should have done differently was the timber cladding, the shadow clad, the vertically grooved stuff. They sell it as either primed or raw. The raw is cheaper, but we opted for the raw because we wanted to have it as the oiled raw timber look. But I think the way that they make that stuff, it's obviously laminated pieces of timber on top of each other, but they end up getting these fine cracks all through them. So they're not good to oil. It like the cracks form, and then water can get in and mold can form inside the cracks. So I think either not using shadow clad or painting it would have been a way better thing to do.
So another thing that I wouldn't necessarily recommend to do, but definitely to just consider, is having a bit of privacy in your tiny house. So we made this wall behind us all wall, apart from the windows, which are quite up high, which means that if people did live in that house and they were out and about, the house behind us, that would be fine because they wouldn't see in and see us, and we couldn't see them. I mean, this isn't always relevant. And I know a lot of people love a lot of natural lighting in a tiny house, which is really reasonable. But a lot of the designs that I've seen online have windows everywhere and big ones that, let a lot of light in and don't necessarily allow for privacy. So I just recommend considering, do you want any privacy? And if so, make account for that with your windows.
Good advice. Yeah, because then you can park the tiny house in an orientation that means that you're not always wondering what somebody else can see.
Exactly. I'd also really recommend a skylight. They're a total game changer. Like, just being able to go to bed at night and see the stars is one thing, but also for claustrophobia, it makes the loft feel so much bigger. And because the rafters and the roof itself is quite thick, there's this whole chunk before the glass, so you can actually like kneel up and have extra headspace. It's really nice having a skylight.
That's great. Now, do you have a way of cutting out the sunlight from coming in on the skylight? Is it one of those ones that can shut so that in the heat of the summer you can block out the direct sunshine?
We're going to install a blind. There's not one there yet at the moment, but that's one of the things we still have left to do.
Yeah, great. So hopefully you get that done before the heat of summer hits in, because that's my main concern with them. But you're also in a shady spot, so the canopy of the trees will provide you with some of the shade that a blind would do anyway.
Yeah, it hasn't been an issue. We haven't actually got any blinds on any of our windows, and it truly hasn't been an issue thus far, has it?
No, it hasn't.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thanks so much. It's just been a delight hearing from you. I'm so impressed with what you've built here.
Oh,
it's beautiful,
thank you.
and it's lovely to hear your journey and how you've gone. And I can see the love between you. It's so nice to see that you're stronger for it, or strong anyway, still.
Yeah, I think we're
it's
definitely
lovely.
stronger for it.
100%.
Yeah.
That is definitely an aspect of tiny house building that I think about. How does the couple go? Because it's a big deal. It's a big test.
It is a huge test. It's a huge test. And I think, it can make or break a couple for sure.
Thanks so much, Anna and Rowan, for sharing us your tiny house journey. It's been a great chat with you. Thank you.
And thank you so much for having us on. The pleasure's really all ours. It's been really nice having a trip down memory lane and reminiscing on the build and how it went.
Yeah, it really has been. This has been really nice. And I think it's just so great what you and Fred are doing, Shannon, to make tiny house building more accessible, less intimidating for people, by both creating trailers specifically tailored to tiny houses and also obviously through your educational platform. We're obviously massive fans of the tiny house movement, and I think it's initiatives like what you guys are doing that make it more accessible, which is awesome. So keep it up.
You can see pictures of Rowan and Anna's build on our blog. which is on the Fred's Tiny Houses website under DIY Education. Through the blog and through the Fred's Tiny Houses YouTube channel, you can see the tour that Anna and Rowan took us on of their tiny house. So be sure to pop over and check that one out. The links are in the show notes of the podcast. Candid Tiny House is brought to you by Fred's Tiny Houses and Tiny House University with the course How to Build a Tiny House, the Australian online course. All the people that we interview for the series have taken a workshop or the online course and have built on a Fred's Tiny Houses trailer. The music for the series is by Scott Buckley. I'm Shannon Schultz. This episode was recorded and edited on Jara country, and we pay our respect and our appreciation to the custodians of the land and the living culture of the Dja Dja Wurrung people. Please share this episode with anybody you think might enjoy it, and stay candid.